A good woman values kindness. A healthy relationship needs care, patience, and support. This video is not about becoming cold, rude, or toxic. This is about understanding the difference between real kindness and weak behavior dressed up as kindness. Because many men are not being kind. They are being afraid. Afraid to lose her, afraid to upset her, afraid to set boundaries. And women can feel that instantly. Kindness without self-respect is not attractive. So let's talk about the 5 things that secretly make her lose respect. Before we begin, the Stoic Tribe team is currently working on the Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men course, and it's coming very soon. This course is designed to help you rebuild your self-respect, master emotional control, set powerful boundaries, and finally stop losing yourself in relationships. It breaks everything down step by step in simple, practical ways, so you can truly understand these principles, apply them daily, and make them part of who you are for life. If you want to become calmer, sharper, more respected, and impossible to manipulate, comment "The Blueprint" right now so we know you're ready. Number 1. You always say yes. One of the fastest ways to lose respect is this. You never say no, and that pattern quietly shapes the entire dynamic long before you realize what is happening, because every time she asks for your time, and you instantly rearrange your life. Every time she changes plans and you act like it does not matter. Every time she gives you the last-minute invite, the half-hearted apology, the inconsistent energy, and you keep making space for her no matter what. You are not just being generous, you are teaching her exactly how available you are and exactly how little it takes for you to move your own priorities aside. And at first this may seem harmless because you tell yourself you are simply being understanding, patient, easy to be with. But over time, what begins as kindness turns into a quiet pattern of self-abandonment where your schedule stops belonging to you. Your peace depends on whether she is pleased, and your choices become shaped by the fear of disappointing someone else rather than the discipline of honoring your own life. And that is where respect starts to slip. Not because kindness is unattractive, but because there is a huge difference between a man who gives because he chooses to, and a man who gives because he is afraid of losing connection. Because when your yes is automatic, it stops carrying value. It stops meaning anything. It becomes expected. And once something is expected rather than appreciated, it slowly loses its weight. And this is where many people quietly lose themselves in relationships, not through one dramatic moment, but through small daily compromises that seem harmless until one day they look up and realize they no longer recognize the version of themselves who used to have standards, routines, goals, and a sense of direction that existed before they started outsourcing their peace to someone else's moods. And if this is hitting home, it is because you already know what this feels like. You know what it is like to say yes when you are tired, to make yourself available when it inconveniences you, to cancel your own plans, because deep down you are scared that saying no will make her pull away, and that fear is exactly what needs to be confronted, because a life built around keeping other people comfortable will always cost you your self-respect in the end. And this is where emotional discipline becomes powerful, because discipline is not coldness, it is clarity. It is the ability to pause before reacting, to ask yourself whether your decision is coming from confidence or from anxiety, whether you are choosing connection or chasing reassurance. And the strongest shift you can make is learning that saying no is not rude, setting limits is not selfish, and protecting your time is not cruelty. It is maturity, because your time is your life, and every careless yes is a quiet trade of your energy for temporary approval. And the solution is not to become distant or harsh. The solution is to become intentional, to stop treating your availability like it is endless, to stop making instant access to you the default, to let your words carry weight again by only agreeing when it genuinely aligns with your values, your schedule, and your peace. Because the truth is simple. People take you more seriously when you take yourself seriously, and when you stop bending every time someone expects you to, something changes inside you. Your confidence becomes steadier, your presence becomes stronger, your choices become cleaner, and your relationships improve because they are now built on mutual respect rather than silent self-sacrifice. And once you learn to value your own time, you stop needing others to confirm your worth because your standards start doing that for you. And if this is opening your eyes to patterns you have been living for years, this is exactly why the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men exists. Filled with timeless principles that help you build boundaries, emotional control, self-respect, and inner calm, it gives you the exact tools to stop repeating these painful cycles and start leading your life with clarity. And now, for the first time, it is also available in audiobook format, so you can absorb this life-changing knowledge while walking, jogging, driving, or simply taking time for yourself. The link is in the comments, and once you get it, it is yours for life, which means you will always have access to these lessons whenever life tests you again. If you are tired of losing yourself in relationships and ready to become someone unshakable, this is one of the best investments you can make in yourself. Number 2, you forgive bad behavior. Fast. Kindness becomes weakness when you keep excusing disrespect, and this is one of the most painful traps because it often hides behind good intentions, patience, loyalty, and the hope that if you just stay calm long enough, give enough chances, and keep showing understanding, things will eventually become what you wanted them to be. But what actually happens in most situations is that every time someone crosses a line and you quickly explain it away, you send a message that your boundaries are flexible, your standards are negotiable, and your self-respect can be postponed in the name of keeping the connection alive. And this is where many people quietly suffer for months or years because they confuse endurance with strength. They think staying through inconsistency makes them admirable. They think tolerating poor treatment proves emotional depth. But what it often proves is that they have become disconnected from their own threshold for what they should and should not accept. And if you are honest with yourself, you already know how exhausting this is, because you know what it feels like to replay conversations in your head, trying to justify behavior that did not sit right with you. To tell yourself, she is just stressed, she is just confused, she did not mean it like that, she is going through something. And while empathy matters, there is a line where empathy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal, because understanding why someone behaves badly does not obligate you to keep absorbing the consequences of it. And this is one of the clearest places where emotional steadiness changes your life. Because steadiness is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending things do not affect you. It is about refusing to let your emotions override your principles. It is about staying calm enough to see patterns clearly instead of getting trapped in cycles of hope, excuse, disappointment, and repeat. And this is where true self-respect begins, in the quiet moments where you stop asking, "How do I keep this person?" and start asking, "What does it cost me to keep tolerating this?" Because that question changes everything. It shifts your focus from preserving access to protecting peace. And protecting peace is one of the most life-changing skills you can develop. Because once you stop normalizing what drains you, confuses you, and leaves you constantly unsettled, your standards begin to rise naturally, not from ego, but from clarity. And the practical shift here is simple, even if it is uncomfortable. Stop rushing to smooth things over every time someone lets you down. Stop fixing discomfort too quickly just because silence makes you uneasy. Stop abandoning your instincts when your body is already telling you something feels off, and instead, pause, observe, and respond with calm honesty, because calm honesty has more strength than emotional overreaction ever will. And that might sound like saying, "That was not okay with me," or "I need consistency, not apologies," or "I am not willing to keep repeating this pattern," and then meaning it through your actions, because boundaries without follow-through are just wishes. And real confidence is built when your actions finally match what you say matters to you. And once you begin doing this, something powerful happens. You stop carrying the emotional weight of other people's choices, you stop living in a state of constant second-guessing, and you begin to trust yourself again, because trust in yourself is built every time you choose your values over your fear of losing someone. And that kind of inner steadiness changes far more than your relationships. It changes how you walk through every part of life. Number 3, you overhelp too much. Helping is good, but trying to become her full-time rescuer is not. And this is one of the most draining traps, because it often starts from a place that looks noble on the surface. You care, you want to support her, you want to make her life easier, you want to be dependable, and there is nothing wrong with wanting to be reliable. But the problem begins when your support stops being a choice and starts becoming your identity. When your value in the connection becomes tied to what you can fix, carry, solve, absorb, or sacrifice, because that is where many people slowly lose themselves without even noticing it, not in one dramatic moment, but in the quiet pattern of always stepping in first, always calming the situation, always paying, always driving, always planning, always being available emotionally, while your own needs stay pushed to the side. And if you are honest, you know exactly what this looks like, because you have likely told yourself that if you just do a little more, show a little more loyalty, prove a little more effort, she will finally see what you bring. She will finally value you properly. She will finally stop taking your presence for granted. But what usually happens is the opposite, because when you consistently overextend yourself to earn closeness, you quietly teach her that your energy is unlimited, your time is flexible, and your care can be accessed without accountability. And the harsh truth is that people rarely respect what they never have to work to keep, because effort has meaning when it is intentional, not when it is constantly available at the expense of your own peace. And this is where emotional discipline becomes life-changing, because discipline in this area means refusing to confuse self-neglect with love. It means understanding that support is healthy only when it does not cost you your center, your goals, your routines, your peace of mind, and your self-respect. Because once helping starts becoming your way of securing reassurance, it stops being generosity and starts becoming emotional bargaining. And that is exhausting, because now every kind act carries hidden pressure. Every favor quietly becomes an unspoken hope that she will finally appreciate you the way you want. And when that appreciation does not arrive in the form you expected, resentment begins to build, frustration grows, and you start living in silent disappointment while pretending you are fine. And that is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself, because your whole life starts revolving around managing someone else's chaos while your own direction slowly fades. And this is where a grounded mindset changes everything, because grounded people understand that care without limits becomes self-erasure, and self-erasure never leads to respect, not from her, not from others, and not from yourself. So the solution is not to stop being helpful. The solution is to stop making yourself responsible for things that are not yours to carry, to stop rushing in every time she has a problem, to stop treating her discomfort like an emergency that must become your burden, to stop trying to become indispensable through overgiving, because real strength is not in how much weight you can absorb for someone else. It is in how clearly you can support without abandoning your own standards. And that might mean listening without trying to solve everything. It might mean saying, "I trust you to handle this," instead of immediately stepping in. It might mean protecting your energy instead of proving your devotion. And that shift changes everything, because when you stop making your worth dependent on how useful you are, your presence becomes stronger, calmer, and more valuable. You become someone who gives from fullness rather than fear, from confidence rather than anxiety. And that kind of presence is deeply respected because it comes from a place of inner steadiness, not emotional need. And once you learn that your role in life is not to rescue everyone around you, but to lead yourself well first, your entire life starts to sharpen, because you are no longer leaking your energy, trying to hold together people who should be learning how to hold themselves together. And that lesson alone can transform not just your relationships, but your future. Number 4, you hide your real feelings. Many people think keeping the peace at all costs is a sign of maturity, but silence that comes from fear is one of the quickest ways to lose respect in any relationship, because there is a major difference between staying calm and suppressing yourself, and too many people confuse the two for far too long. They stay quiet when something bothers them. They swallow disappointment to avoid conflict. They pretend not to notice patterns that are clearly affecting them, and they tell themselves they are being easygoing, understanding, low maintenance, when in reality they are slowly teaching others that their discomfort can be ignored, their boundaries can be tested, and their truth can be postponed whenever it becomes inconvenient. And if this sounds familiar, it is because this pattern is incredibly common among people who are afraid that honesty will cost them connection, because deep down, the fear is simple. If I say what I really think, if I admit this hurts, if I speak clearly about what I need, she may pull away, she may become cold, she may stop choosing me. And so instead of risking short-term discomfort, you choose long-term internal tension, and that tension builds quietly over time until one day you are no longer relaxed in the relationship. You are performing inside it, monitoring yourself, editing yourself, shrinking yourself to avoid friction. And that is one of the most damaging positions to live in, because now your life is no longer being led by truth. It is being led by fear, and fear always makes you smaller than you need to be. And this is where emotional steadiness becomes one of the most powerful traits you can build. Because steadiness is not about becoming cold, harsh, or reactive. It is about becoming rooted enough in yourself that you can tell the truth without panic, without over-explaining, without needing the other person to instantly agree with you in order for you to stay centered. And that changes everything, because once you stop fearing honest communication, your entire presence changes. Your words become cleaner, your posture changes, your decisions become more aligned, and you stop carrying the invisible exhaustion that comes from constantly betraying yourself in small ways just to keep someone comfortable, because here is the truth that changes lives. Avoiding difficult conversations does not create peace. It delays discomfort while quietly damaging your self-respect. And the longer you avoid what needs to be said, the more you train yourself to believe that your truth is dangerous. And once you believe that, every area of your life starts to shrink. Not just relationships, but work, friendships, family, decisions, goals. Because the habit of silence in one area becomes the habit of silence everywhere, and that is why learning to speak clearly is one of the most transformative skills you can build. Because clear communication is not about controlling the outcome. It is about honoring yourself regardless of the outcome. It is about saying, "This matters to me," and meaning it, even if it creates discomfort, even if it leads to difficult choices, because real confidence is not built by being liked at all times. It is built by knowing you can handle honesty without losing yourself. And practically, this means slowing down before you react emotionally, noticing what you actually think instead of what sounds safest, and then expressing it with calm directness, because calm directness carries far more weight than bottled resentment ever will. And this might look like saying, "That did not sit right with me," or "I need consistency if this is going to work," or I am not going to keep pretending this is fine when it is not, and then standing by those words with your actions, because truth without action is just temporary relief. And once you begin living this way, something powerful happens. You stop living in quiet frustration, you stop building hidden resentment, and you begin to trust yourself in a way that most people never do, because self-trust is built every time you choose honesty over comfort. And when you become someone who can speak clearly without losing your center, your entire life changes, because you are no longer controlled by the fear of someone else's reaction. You are finally led by your own principles, and that kind of inner stability is what gives a person lasting confidence, lasting peace, and relationships built on something real rather than silent compromise. Number 5. You chase her approval. This is the biggest one, because chasing her approval is the quiet habit that sits underneath almost every other mistake, and most people do not even realize they are doing it, because on the surface it looks like effort, affection, patience, generosity, consistency. But underneath all of that, there is often something much more dangerous happening. A deep dependence on her response to determine your mood, your confidence, your sense of worth, and your peace. And once that happens, the relationship stops being a connection and starts becoming a constant emotional test that you keep trying to pass, because now every text matters too much. Every delay becomes heavy. Every change in tone creates anxiety. Every small sign of distance sends your mind into overdrive. And before long, your whole emotional state is being shaped by how available she is on any given day. And this is where countless people slowly lose themselves without realizing it, because they think they are just being attentive. They think they are just trying to make things work. They think they are just showing care. But what they are really doing is handing over their emotional stability to someone who has not earned that level of access. And that is one of the fastest ways to lose respect in any relationship, because the moment your center depends on another person's approval, your energy changes in ways you cannot hide. You become overly accommodating, overly careful, overly reactive, overly eager to please, and people sense that instantly, because there is a huge difference between someone who cares from a place of fullness and someone who cares from a place of emotional hunger. And emotional hunger changes everything. It makes you overthink simple interactions. It makes you tolerate behavior you should question. It makes you ignore your instincts just to keep access. And it makes you start performing instead of simply being yourself. And the hard truth is that many people are not actually trying to build a healthy relationship. They are trying to secure emotional certainty from someone else because they do not yet know how to create it within themselves. And that is why this pattern is so destructive, because once you begin chasing approval in one relationship, it rarely stays there. It leaks into your work, your friendships, your decisions, your habits, your confidence, and your entire life starts being shaped by the fear of not being chosen rather than the discipline of choosing yourself first. And this is where inner steadiness becomes the turning point that changes everything, because steadiness is what allows you to care without collapsing, to love without losing your center, to show up fully without attaching your self-worth to the outcome. And that kind of presence is rare, because most people are not trained to sit with uncertainty. Most people panic the second they do not get reassurance, and panic is what makes them abandon their standards. But once you begin building real emotional discipline, your entire relationship with life starts to shift. Because now, instead of instantly reacting to uncertainty, you pause, you breathe, you observe, you let your emotions settle before deciding what something actually means. And that simple practice alone can save you years of unnecessary suffering, because so much pain in relationships comes not from what happened, but from the stories people tell themselves in the silence. And when you stop rushing to fill every silence with fear, you begin to see clearly. You begin to separate what is actually happening from what your insecurity is projecting. And clarity is one of the most powerful things a person can build, because clarity protects you from chasing things that were never truly aligned with you in the first place. And this is where many lives change, in the quiet decision to stop making your worth negotiable, to stop using performance as a way to secure love, to stop treating every connection like it is your last chance to be chosen. Because once you release that mindset, something powerful happens. You stop becoming so easy to manipulate, because manipulation only works when your emotional needs are stronger than your principles. And when your principles become stronger, your entire energy shifts. You become calmer, less desperate, less easy to pull into cycles of mixed signals and emotional confusion. And that changes how people treat you, because people always respond differently to someone who is deeply rooted in themselves, someone who is not trying to win approval, someone who is not constantly shape-shifting to stay liked, someone who can walk away from inconsistency without needing closure to justify the decision. And that is where real freedom begins, not in making her chase you, not in trying to prove a point, but in reaching a place where whether she stays or goes no longer determines how you see yourself, because that is the level most people never reach. They spend years trying to be enough for people who were never clear, never consistent, never grounded. And in the process, they abandon the one person they should have been building all along, themselves. And that is why the real solution here is not a trick, not a line, not a strategy to gain leverage. The real solution is to rebuild your life so fully that no one person becomes the center of your identity, and that means creating routines that strengthen you, habits that steady you, goals that matter to you, friendships that keep you sharp, work that gives you direction, and daily practices that keep your mind clear instead of emotionally scattered. Because once your life has real structure, your standards naturally rise, and when your standards rise, you stop tolerating uncertainty that drains you. You stop chasing people who only value you when it is convenient, and you stop treating your own peace like something to trade for temporary affection. And this is the deepest lesson in all of this. The strongest position you can ever reach in life is not being admired, not being desired, not being validated. It is being so grounded in who you are that no person's attention becomes your emotional oxygen. Because once you reach that point, you stop acting from fear. You stop shrinking yourself. You stop waiting for someone to finally see your worth. And instead, you start living in a way that makes your own life worth respecting. And when that happens, everything changes. Because the world responds differently to people who no longer beg for what they should never have to beg for in the first place. Everything changes the moment you stop handing your peace to people who have not earned access to it. And the truth is, the world is full of noise designed to keep you distracted, reactive, and disconnected from your own strength, because a clear, disciplined man is much harder to control. That is exactly why the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men matters, because it is filled with timeless principles that help you build real self-respect, emotional control, and the kind of presence that changes every relationship in your life. It is now also available in audiobook format, so you can listen while walking, jogging, driving, or training, and start rebuilding yourself in the quiet moments that usually go wasted. The link is in the comments, and once you get it, this knowledge is yours for life whenever life tries to pull you back into old patterns. If you're ready to stop settling, comment "No more," like this video, and subscribe so more men can find these truths before they lose years they can never get back.